Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our July 30th, 2019 agenda session. Can I get a motion to approve the second? Any questions? All in favor by the sign of aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. So before we get started today, we have a special person amongst us, and at this time, I'm going to turn the mic over to Vice Chairman Henderson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate that. We do have a special friend with us here today that's come to bid us farewell. Mr. Joe Ferguson, longtime chairman of EPB, has announced his retirement, much to our dismay. Joe's done a great job since he's been at EPB, formed partnership with Oak Ridge Laboratories. We've seen the creation or the development of the gig, all of that under Joe's leadership, and he's done a great job. And he's going to come today and just say a few words. So, Mr. Ferguson, if you would, come take the podium, please, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chairman and Chairman. Delighted to be with you. It's been a while since I've been to one of the meetings. 30 years that I've worked with some of you off and on various things. And in my checklist of things to make sure I do before the end of the day hits tomorrow, certainly one of the things was to come here and have 3 or 4 minutes with you to reflect on some things and then think a little bit down the road. First, we became involved in the early 90s when we thought about putting battery-powered electric shuttles on the street. And I take interest every day as I walk around town. I see some of those buses that we built that are now 26 years old, 27 years old, and the federal government said when they loaned Carter the money that they should last 7 years. They're 25, 26, they're little tanks. Started with that, then of course we got the Enterprise Center up and running. And some of you remember, I'm sure, the throes we went through on high-speed rail. And the progress we made there, but at the same time, high-speed rail will come at some point in time. It will have to. And I think Chattanooga will be a huge beneficiary of that as it lies where it does between Atlanta and Nashville. And I-75 would be the path, I think. Then came EPB, went on the board in 1991, was named chair in 2000. I look back at what we've been able to accomplish, and a lot of that has been the cooperation that we've had with all of you. Some of you I haven't had the opportunity to work with very long. Others, we've been engaged with one another for a good while. I would want you to know that as I leave, I take great comfort, and I want you to take great comfort in the state of EPB. EPB is in excellent shape. It's looked upon across the country as the premier power distributor. We still have power companies coming in from time to time to look at the model that we have made with the organization. Team EPB is exceptional. The people are exceptional. The senior management is exceptional, and that's what's done what it has in the way of the culture that has been built there. The fiber optic smart grid is one that will continue to plow new ground as it is at the present time. There will be new initiatives that will come as a result of that. A lot of that, as Chairman Henderson mentioned, will be as a result of working closely with our friends at Oak Ridge National Lab. We signed that partnership about 2 years ago. It's paid off in spades. It will continue to pay off in spades. Many of you know Jeff Deloat's a relatively new CEO of Times Free Press. Jeff had not visited a national lab, so we put together a visit for him, and Dave Flessner came along. We had a day there that was quite busy because you go up there's just too much to see, too much to do. I understand that they will start a series of articles this coming weekend that you'll be interested to read. I have no idea what it's going to be, but I'm sure it'll be interesting. When Jeff and I were driving back, I told him, technology we think today is moving at warp speed. We haven't seen anything. Based on what we see going on at the lab, what they are developing, what they've already developed and they're just honing it now, is is something that is very difficult to understand how fast things will happen. And as a result of that, we've got to be prepared for it. I want to jump over in just a couple of areas of personal privilege. I told Jeff on the way back from Oak Ridge that to every parent, grandparent, great-grandparent, when we talk about our children and their education, as we look into the future and what advanced technology is doing and will continue to do, it is so very important that we get our youngsters involved in the technical side of things, much less just the good sound education that they must have. To get a good job in the future, you're going to have to be tuned in to technology. It's just in the cards. It's there. And that's a problem all of us need to be working on. Look ahead just for a minute. We've got some problems we've got to solve. We've got some huge opportunities right in front of us that we need to take advantage of and capitalize on. It's going to take leadership to do that, both to solve those problems and to capitalize on the opportunities that are there. Leadership from the council is going to have to step forward and help get that done. I told a group the other day that we don't have a Scotty, we don't have a Jack, we don't have a Maybell anymore. And I saw some eyes glazed over, and I remembered then that they don't know who I was talking about. So as we look at how we got where we are today, and I came to Chattanooga in 1965 with a very young family. We went through the darkest days of modern-day Chattanooga in the 70s, in the 80s, and into the 90s. But look what we did. Look what leadership did in this community. And we can do that again. The leadership is here. We still have seasoned leadership that knows how to solve problems. And one of the things that I would put before you is never forget to tap into that leadership that's out there. Some of those folks studied under the Scotties and the Jacks, as I did, and I felt so very blessed and fortunate to have done that. There's leadership out there that can help you. You don't have to do it all by yourself. It's out there. So I look forward to continue to work. I'm not going to sit on the porch in a rocking chair. I'm working closely at UTC and Chattanooga State on workforce development projects. I'm going to stay engaged on that. David Wade, Hodgen know that I'm on call at any time, but again, I thank you so much for all the help, all the cooperation that the council gave us through the years to get to where we are today. Thank you.
Thank you. Hold on, Joe. Councilman Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Joe, you ought to know better than to think that nobody's going to have anything to say before you sat down. But that's all right. I'm not going to ask you to get back up. I just wanted to say thank you for all your years of service, but not only that, and knowing what you've done as somebody in the tech sector here and been involved in bringing over 100 people into our company in just the last year. Most of those people looked at Chattanooga and were willing to move here because of what EPB has helped do. So there is an impact way beyond what you see and what we notice within our community to people outside of here, and what is also helping many businesses like mine grow here. So thank you again very much to everything that all that you've done over the years and your service. I know it can be daunting and take a lot of time. And I'll just close with, I know that you will be instrumental, I would imagine, in the future. People will be reaching out to you and seek advice, and at the point that Mr. Wade decides that maybe he's had enough and is ready to go enjoy some free time, I would just like to encourage you to look no further than the colleague to your left to replace him. Thank you again. Appreciate it, Joe.
Thank you, Councilman Smith. And I, too, would like to just thank you for all that you've done through EPB. But mostly, I want to thank you for the man that you are and with how you represent this community, how you are so engaged and sharing your knowledge and all your civic awareness. And I personally, when I first came here and I first met you, it was good to, you was probably the first person I ever met here who I could actually look eye to eye to. So that's, that was a big thrill within itself. But I just want to wish you the best and just can't express how much I've appreciated your friendship since I've been here. Now that you're no longer chairman, I would imagine you would have more leisure time. So if you can, loan me a few of your ties, it's kind of hard to find those extra long ties in this city. So if I could just get 2 or 3, I would be honored in that in of itself. So thank you, Joe, and wish you the best. And please stay engaged in this city. And considering I'll always be a friend. Okay, that's with that being said. Madam Clerk, I'm going to need you to read an item on final reading, 5A, please.
An ordinance to amend Chattanooga City Code Part 2 by adding a new Chapter 11, Article 11, Downtown Central Business Improvement District, Downtown CBID, Sections 11.525 through 11.534, alternate version.
Great, thank you. Councilwoman Burrs.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. There's been a lot of confusion regarding amendments. So if I may, I want to ask Phil, I'm going to read the amendments that I understand are in there, and you will hopefully say affirmative. Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. No city tax dollars are expended.
No, ma'am.
Is that true?
That's not the way it reads.
There are no city tax dollars involved in this process. There is a special assessment that would occur by the bid board itself, but there are no city tax dollars that were involved. The only thing that the city does annually is to produce an annual report documenting the baseline services that are within that area that are provided by the city. That's it.
Okay, so let me ask again. Are there any city tax dollars expended other than in producing a report relative to the bid?
No, ma'am.
Does the Sunshine Law apply to all bid meetings?
Yes, ma'am.
Is the city fully indemnified by the bid?
Yes, ma'am.
There's no bid income that flows through the city budget.
No, ma'am.
There's going to be a year-end audit report to the city council, both financial and behavioral.
Yes, ma'am.
All properties are included. In other words, there's no NGO special interest exceptions. However, they all have the right to appeal to the bid board.
Yes, ma'am. And that we specifically, at the request of Councilman Henderson, included in 11.531B, the provision that says, notwithstanding the foregoing, any property owned by the city and the county is exempt from the special assessment in accordance with state law, which is already there at TCA 784-523, but we added that as well. And there are...
So there are no properties from the inception that are accepted.
No, ma'am. They would have to be accepted out only by the bid board as a nonprofit after a substantial showing under the provisions that are set out.
Or anybody can go to the bid board?
Yes.
All right.
Yes, ma'am.
So is it true that there's no properties accepted from inception?
No, ma'am.
They would have to appeal?
Get that exception
All
from the
right.
bid board. Yes, ma'am.
Appeals from the bid board decisions go directly to circuit court?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Now, Mr. City Attorney, would you please read the rules of the public meetings for tonight?
Okay, there has been quite a bit of discussion the last couple of weeks about the rules, and there was actually a media advisory that went out last week by the mayor's office here regarding the bid public hearing rules. These will be on the, I guess, the overhead projector this evening at 5:30 PM based upon the most recent request. And that document says that the rules for tonight are that business owners in the zone will be allowed to speak at the public hearing in addition to property owners. Property owners are given this opportunity to speak, and this is their only option here this evening if there's somebody who wants to talk. So they will be given priority. But there is a total of 60 minutes for public hearing with 30 minutes for each side, if necessary, for support and opposition of the bid. There'll be sign-up sheets outside of the city council chamber, and those wishing to speak need to sign those sign-up sheets to be heard. One of the qualifications is to establish that you are either a business owner in the zone or that you are a property owner within the zone, and you need to sign up before the beginning of the 6 PM meeting. Each speaker will get up to 3 minutes and an opportunity to speak during the meeting if they need to. And I think this request will be made shortly before the 6 PM meeting so that everyone who is coming here at the last minute will get an opportunity to at least learn those rules.
Thank you, Mr. City Attorney. Now, Madam Clerk, 5B has already been read into the minutes, so now we'll need to go down to ordinances on first reading, starting with 6A, please.
An ordinance amending Chattanooga City Code, Part 2, Chapter 38, Zoning Ordinance, Articles 2 and 5, Sections 38.2, 38.183.17, 38.305, 38.306, 38.323.5, 38.333.7, and 38.341.10, relating to outdoor storage and mini warehouses.
Councilman Ledford.
Thank you, Chairman. Mr. Bridger, can you make sure we all have the ordinance in our inboxes so we can read?
Sure, I'll
and
forward
go
you the
over?
PDF.
Thank you. And number two, I don't think we're ready for this, so I'm going to defer this to August 13th, which would be maybe actually further. Let's get through the meeting next week, because we need to follow our rules, and that would be 2 weeks.
Okay, that would be like the Planning and Zoning Committee.
Yeah, we're
meeting,
gonna
right?
talk about this at Planning and Zoning next week on the 6th.
Yep.
Okay?
Yep.
Thank you.
Councilman Gilbert.
Hey, John, on that ordinance, can you provide that as soon as possible?
I'll have it to y'all today.
Thank you. Good man.
Thank you, Councilman Gilbert. Okay, if there's no other questions, let's move on to resolutions, starting with 7A, please.
A resolution expressing the intent of the City of Chattanooga to issue bonds in the aggregate amount not to exceed $31,500,000 for the purpose of paying all or a portion of the costs of library HVAC and lighting system, library electrical upgrade, apparatus fire pumper, sidewalks, pedestrian infrastructure, South Chickamauga Creek Greenway, Kane Lane, alley program, Kane Lane Greenway Connector, South, 3rd, 4th Street Improvement and Gateway, Goodwin Road, Gun Barrel Hamilton Place Boulevard, Patton Parkway, Complete Streets, 26th Market to Wayland Site No Median, Shepherd Road Enhancement, Highway 153 to Airport, Trans Streetscape sidewalks, 3rd, 4th Street, Airport Area Road, improvements East Brainerd, Lee Highway intersection, Alton Park Riverwalk connector, Area 3 Commercial District streetscape improvements, bridge management and maintenance multiple locations, Central Avenue, Elder Mountain Road slope stabilization and roadway improvements, Somerville connector, Riverwalk extension, Middle Street to Incline, Wilcox Boulevard Tunnel East entrance, Woodmore SRTS construction phase, East Lake YFD Center expansion, building energy efficiency upgrades, city buildings and YFD centers major maintenance, Greenway Farm, city facilities improvement and/or campus consolidation, ESIP Ferdinand Peach Way modifications, Greenway Farm Conference Center replacement, 3500 St. Elmo Broad Street, Davidson Road, and East Lake Water Quality Restoration.
Seeing no questions, let's go down to 7B, please.
A resolution expressing the intent of the City of Chattanooga to issue bonds in the aggregate amount not to exceed $60 million of the City of Chattanooga, Tennessee, for the purpose of paying all or a portion of the costs of projects related to the Interceptor Sewer System Sanitary Sewer Overflow Program, Citico Pump Station improvements, Moccasin Bend Wastewater Treatment Plant Solids Process Optimization Implementation Phase 4, Wet Weather Storage Phase 5, East Brainerd, Wet Weather Storage Phase 6, Hickson Pump Station Number 1, Wet Weather Storage Phase 7, Lee Highway.
Let's move on now to 7C, please.
A resolution authoring the city finance officer to execute the selection of option 3 on the options form for a fixed account amendment to a group flexible purchase payment deferred variable annuity contract and application for a guaranteed minimum interest rate with Nationwide Retirement Solutions and Nationwide Life Insurance Company, collectively Nationwide.
Let's move on down to 7D, please.
A resolution authorizing the administrator for the Department of Public Works to enter into a fourth amendment to exercise option to renew in substantially the form attached for the partnership agreement with Chattanooga Flying Disc Club for the renewal term of 1 year for the continued use and operation of all present and future disc golf courses at city public parks and for daily use and tournament play.
Thank you. Items number E, F, and G has already been read into the record as of last week. So now we will move on to departmental report, human resources. Committee, I'm sorry. Committee meeting. There's- Committee meeting? You forgot? Oh, man.
Approve the minutes of last meeting.
Thank you.
How you doing, Ms. Beverly?
Good afternoon. I appreciate the time that you guys have planned for us today.
Go right ahead and present your individual guests.
Okay. As you all remember, we contracted for a compensation study for the city. And so as a part of the kickoff, we have representatives, our project directors from Gallagher Benefit Services that is here today to update you on where we are at and to share with you a little bit more information about our approach for the study. So I'd like to introduce to you Ronnie Charles and Mike Burdern.
Thank you very much, council members, for the opportunity to present. We have a short presentation here to go through. I didn't ask somebody, there it is. Where that was. We've had the opportunity to meet with the HR team, project team, some department heads earlier today, as well as the mayor earlier this morning to kind of go through what the project is, what we're going to be doing next, and what's the next steps, as well as where we're at right now. So it's kind of flip through just a little bit. This is a shortened version of what we will be giving to the broader employee population. We have the date scheduled right now of August 21st, 22nd, and 23rd for on-site employee informational sessions about what the project is, what we're planning to do, and what the results are going to hopefully include. So as part of that presentation, we have a little bit about us, just to overview. This is what our practice does. There's 15 of us around the country. Ronnie Charles is our national managing director. He's out of Richmond, Virginia. The project team itself is on the next slide here, but then our firm, our practice focuses on public sector compensation studies like this, doing cities, counties, state governments across the country, doing compensation studies, internal equity, external competitiveness, setting up salary structures, looking at implementation options. So we try to bring that together along with the information that we learn from the city, the jobs, the descriptions, the organizational structure, all of that information, as well as local labor market information in order to develop a potential couple of solution options. This is our project team. As I said, Ronnie Charles, our national managing director. He'll be the overall project director. Bruce Lawson, Jim Fox are the historic practice managing directors from the Arthur Young, Ernst & Young days. Have been doing this work for over 35 years across the country. Ronnie has over 30 years of public sector HR management experience as well. Myself have been doing this for close to 15 years with in public sector within this firm, as well as public sector experience. The rest of our team, I'm out of Minneapolis. Ronnie's out of Richmond. Karita Jones is also out of Richmond, Virginia. She's a former HR director for the city of Richmond. She'll be the day-to-day project manager as well. And then Megan Olson and Alishka Correa are from Minneapolis as well and have extensive experience working in public sector projects like this. So the team of our five will be the team that is working day-to-day with the HR team and the project team. So that's our piece. On the city side, we have the executive sponsors that are the executive leadership at the city. They are going to be that decision-making body. We're going to bring recommendations to them, and ultimately those recommendations to the council after they've been reviewed and vetted through that team. We also have a project team that includes HR as well as city department heads. That is going to be the project management from the city side to make sure that they're overseeing all the employee communications, overseeing our deliverables, having those discussions to make sure they align with the overall city strategy. We also have a city advisory team that will have some department heads as well as some of the SEIU folks so that we can have information for advice and direction and thoughts about how we are proceeding with the project as well that we can take into consideration as we formulate our results. This is a summary of the slide from the project objectives that came from the request for proposal document that summarizes what the city is looking for with regards to the project. Looking at total compensation survey, getting information from those other public sector entities, coupling that with some of the private sector organizations as well. Looking at internal equity to ensure that jobs that have similar level of responsibility, decision-making, complexity across the vast operations that city government does entail are assigned to the same or similar pay ranges as appropriate. Look at the external market, look at the internal market to develop a salary structure, and then those guidelines to help support and administer this system going forward. Our intent is to have a system, and we've been successful at many other clients around the country, of having something that's in place for 20 to 30 years with routine maintenance and cleaning up and all that, and being involved with it. It's not something that you put in place and then walk away from and let it be there. It needs to be continually updated and refreshed to make sure it reflects all the new jobs that are going to be created in the next 5 years at the city. There may be jobs in the next 5 years and 10 years that the city doesn't even have right now. But then how do we place those into the structure? How do we get the right market data and then continue to develop this? In addition to that, looking at the implementation support. So once we get to that end result, identifying what that implementation looks like with the direction of the council on what that methodology and that approach and that algorithm that we use to implement a new system, working with the HR team to make sure we're there to support them in what that would look like with regards to communication, some of the behind the scenes math and administration as well. With that, this is the most important piece that we'll be talking about with the employees as well with this slide, what the study is and what it's not. So in alignment with those goals that were just on the previous slide there, we are looking to make sure that we understand the work first. We want to make sure we understand all those job descriptions. We are going to do that with reviewing of the job descriptions, conversations with various department heads, even conversations with supervisors and employees to make sure that we understand all those jobs. Now, we have read through thousands of job descriptions across the country, and we understand public sector jobs, but every organization organizes that a little bit differently. And we need to make sure we understand how that structure is in place at the City of Chattanooga to make sure we are evaluated internally properly and finding the right data externally as well. So that's the other piece on what the study is, and that second point is to make sure that it's internally equitable and market competitive. We need to balance those two pieces because we can find a lot of market data on jobs, but there's also jobs that we're not going to find market data on. So how do we blend those two pieces together to create a structure that's going to be sustainable, equitable as well? Policies and procedures, we want to make sure that it continuously can be updated, and then it's hopefully easy to understand and administer for HR, intuitive to employees, and so that it can be part of that strategic plan moving forward. But what it's not is we're not here to tell the city how many people to be employed We're not here to change the organizational structure. We're not here to cut costs or eliminate positions. We are not here to reduce or ensure pay increases for everybody either. We never recommend for pay to be cut, but we're not here to make sure everybody gets a pay increase. The end goal is that we want to make sure that the salary structure has a minimum, midpoint, and maximum that allow the city to be competitive and equitable across all of those different positions, and then adjust based upon market as necessary as well. So that's what it is, and we're not here to replace any type of management union conferences either. So we are meant to help to develop that framework and that structure, that foundation for moving ahead into the salary administration. These are just some of the pieces. We have this slide in the communication as well because there are a lot of discussions and decisions that go into what does that compensation strategy look like. You need to look at everything from the labor market to that benefits plan that exists. How does the city need to pull those together to have that total compensation system that's in place? We need to look at what exists right now, pay compression. Those are things that exist right now. How in the new structure and the new strategy are we going to help to alleviate or mitigate that? So we need to pull all of those aspects in places. Where are we getting the data? What is that competitive position that exists? So these are a lot of the questions that we'll be working with the project team and the HR team to help answer and to help set that direction forward. The outcomes itself, we're going to be basing upon that compensation strategy, the information that's gathered from the surveys, the information that's gathered and how the city does compare to the external market. Our experience, what has worked, what hasn't worked in other places, so we can kind of identify what those potential pitfalls might be. What is the good, what's the bad, what's the ugly about all these different situations that could exist from a certain recommendation. Based upon the data, we want to make sure this is valid and defensible salary structure. The other key is that we want to make sure it's replicable, so that when we go back out to the market, working with the city hopefully into the future, every 3 to 5 years to help validate or recalibrate that salary structure, that we can replicate exactly what was done before and compare and contrast those results appropriately. And then ultimately based upon the leadership decision. We know that sometimes that's not something that can be done in 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. We really need to look at that phased in approach as well. But ultimately based upon what are those priorities and those competing interests, and looking for the guidance, and we'll provide the recommendations and then those appropriate guidance from the leadership of the city. Overall, we're looking at a timeline that's going to take us through the end of the calendar year. So we are starting this project right now. We were able to meet with the city prior to this, set up these meetings, come back and have a chance to present to the leadership at the city. And then the 21st, 22nd, 23rd is having those on-site employee orientation sessions where 2 of our other project team members, Karita and Megan, will be on site to have various presentations at various locations around the city as well. So it's available for as many of the employees as possible, in addition to being recorded so people can see that later on as well. But then we want to look at the 2 phases in the middle, internal equity, market competitiveness. Our goal is to send out a custom salary survey to competitive public sector organizations. We're working with the project team to identify what that list would look like, and then get that out so that we can start collecting that market data from public sector organizations, and then complement that with published survey sources to represent the private sector for those cross-industry positions. We know that jobs of the city are sometimes solely public sector, but there are also other ones that exist in every type of organization that is out there. So we need to pull those 2 pieces together. And then ultimately in that early winter timeframe is looking at those salary structure and implementation options, and then presenting what those potential options and recommendations are before the end of the calendar year. And then in the new year is a lot of just the internal administration of once an option is selected, is to move forward with that implementation support. So that summarizes the overall project plan. We'll be spending a lot more time with the employee groups to kind of walk different employee presentations, walk through a more detailed plan. We want to tell people phase 1 is this, phase 2 is this, phase 3 is this. These are all the key decision points, just to be as open and transparent as possible with regards to the project plan and what our methodologies are. So with that, any questions or?
So far, no, I have no questions. Are you the only one going to present? The other gentleman's going to say anything?
No, I'm actually, again, my name's Ronnie Charles. Thank you for allowing us to be here today. Mike's really presenting this afternoon because he is fully accountable for the project itself on a day-to-day basis, along with Ms. Karita Jones. So I'm here to support Mike in any questions that you may have. But thank you very much.
So far, no question, but I want to thank you. And this is overdue, way overdue. And I appreciate you having to do this for us and give us a base to go by. And I like when you said follow-up, not just give us a base, but kind of have follow-up with that base. So a continualization of what's the best practice. So far, I have nobody ask any questions. You did a great job. So since we have no one have any questions, this will be the last committee, so we won't meet again till 6 o'clock. We are adjourned.